Welcome to Season 2 of Pod Practice, where Mama Bird alumni Quinn Finer, Mikey Lund, and myself, Alex Atkins, talk about Ultimate from the perspective of players and coaches. We want to engage with you, so please reach out, say hi, ask a question, give some feedback. We look forward to talking with you. To reach out, follow us on Instagram or YouTube at podpractice_pod. Listen on Spotify at Pod Practice, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoy this episode. You could just do another countdown.
5, 4, 3. Okay.
You couldn't even.
But then you got to
it.
do the silent count.
Oh yeah.
I think was it 3? We're not in show business.
I am a little bit. I dabble.
You're the talent.
I dabble. I have the talent. I'm talent.
Okie dokie. We are.
This is like our
Quinn
first
today.
podcast. It's like the first one we did.
No. The first podcast we were sharing a mic.
Yeah.
Two guys, one mic.
Oh my god. That's a good. Yeah. That's.
We should listen to that sometime. That would be.
should.
I'm sure.
Funny.
I'm sure. Tough.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny. I'm glad it's still up there.
It is. Yeah. It's on.
I mean, to be fair,
Spotify.
not much has changed. Like a good amount's changed, but not much. We do it separate now. A little more sustainable. We're not together.
A little more sustainable. And we're working on transferring some editing duties to Mr. Kins and Mr. Semrin, I hope, at some point.
I hope as well.
Been building out some templates for you guys.
Really? That's exciting.
Yeah. It's in an okay state. It'll still take some learning, but I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, and it gets done. So
yeah, I think really just getting on there and playing around too. I'm just haven't ever jumped in before.
That's what life is. Just a big old experiment.
Yeah.
Try, fail, and try again.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So it's really that try part that's the hard part. Just getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
Once you're in, you're usually like
keep the feet nice and soggy.
You know where I see that a lot?
That doesn't sound right.
Getting ultimate players to play disc golf. I've been getting a lot of new guys to play disc golf, and there's like the curves of starting a new thing is really funny. Like watching their progressions of like go up and down is really funny. Because first they hate it because they can't throw it. Then they start to get it a little bit and they're super stoked and really excited. And that is usually followed by like a little bit of short-term success. Like they'll like play a little bit and they'll like make some cool putts and they think they're starting to get better. Then you like keep score for the first time. And
for the first time,
like, you know, at the beginning you're just
I like to just go out and I always keep track.
Yeah, but at the beginning a lot of people
much.
don't keep score. I think they're just like throwing around, or, you know, even if you are, you're not playing by all the rules, you know, you're maybe here and there, like your first couple times, you're not really keeping score.
It's very Gen Z. Is that what the current generation?
You think so?
What are these
you're
folks?
Like first time playing disc golf? Maybe.
What? No. What is Danny's generation?
Gen Z sounds right.
The notion of trying without penalty and consequence or in fear of failure.
Just go in and wait, what is the notion that's with the Gen Zers?
Yeah, it's like we're not going to keep score. We'll just go play disc golf.
Well, I don't think I think it's just at the very beginning you don't.
I know. It's funny how I'm being an old head about it.
You're so old.
But also this is the way that we try to form all of our teams.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's okay to fail.
It is okay.
But also we should be able to make fun of you for failing, right? Maybe? No.
I mean, you can make fun of people for failing. It's more about like, can you handle it, you know? Because like you just have to know it doesn't matter. Like that's the other side is like, who the fuck? Because if you're really smart, you know that you have to fail to succeed. And so why would you care that people are making fun of you about it?
Yeah. Why do you care about what other people think?
Well, because it can be important, you know?
But this is why, to me, establishing rapport is so important. If you are a teacher or coach or a teammate, it's you want to have fun, and to have fun, you have to be able to make fun of each other,
True.
give each other shit,
Joke about stuff.
But yeah, sometimes to get to that point, you have to develop a relationship first.
That's a good point. That's a good reason that I haven't thought of for just kind of like messing around like that, is like you need to laugh with each other to feel closer to each other. Because if you were just super like dry, but maybe, you know, less risque in like your relationship with someone, like it wouldn't be as fun or exciting if there was no laughter. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that in a second. For the time being, though, Quinn can't join us today. He's either working or being a husband, a
Big
roommate.
snow day today
It's
here
unclear.
in Boulder.
Big snow day. We are in the midst of I think like a 36-hour winter storm that's supposed to have about 4 feet of accumulation, apparently, is what I've heard. And I'll be driving to the mountains tomorrow, so
will you?
Hopefully I can make it.
Will you now? Might be difficult. Nah, it looks like it'll melt. It won't freeze.
I'll make it up there one way or another.
What car?
The old CX-5.
It's got to be four wheel, right?
It's all-wheel drive. It does the job. You know, I paid
snow
it off.
tires.
You know what?
Yeah, actually, snow tires.
I have all season. I actually maybe should have snow tires. But if you're looking for a deal and don't care about the way your car looks, back in 2017, I bought it hail damaged off the lot. Immediately $7,000 off MSRP, and then I negotiated a bit more.
The hail damage gave you 7,000 off.
Yeah.
What was like? Did it have just like some little dents in it?
It had a lot of pock marks. Yeah.
That reminds me of the guy who used to run the Roughnecks, who had all the money. That owner, his company is a
Jim?
one of his things, or I think maybe the big thing, was a insurance company that protected cars for like when there's hailstorms and stuff like that, like dealerships that are in the hail.
Oh, is that right? He's I think he's in the Colorado area nowadays.
I feel like I've seen him at like some tournaments. I don't know. Can't remember.
So we're out without Quinn. Wanted to give a brief shout out to Jimmy Donnellan, Coach Jimmy, because we just released his unreleased episode from the archives. We interviewed him last May, right before I left for college nationals, college D1 nationals, and on the tail end of D3 nationals. And Jimmy is had led Colorado College Wasabi, the Spicy Boys, to a national championship. So yeah, thanks for the patience on that, Jimmy and Wasabi.
Deep from the
it had been weighing on my mind for the last almost year here that we hadn't released that, but yeah, unfortunate timing. We went into the dark days of the summer when I think I was a little depressed that Mama Bird lost in pre-quarters, and then we just started, getting into it with Summit and Bravo last year. So happy to have gotten that one out.
Deep from the archives.
And it also, from the archives. And it also helped me work on that template that I have for you and Omar.
I love a good template.
I keep calling out Omar, but Omar, are you going to help or what, Mr. Producer?
Omar says he will, but you never know. He's a busy guy, I guess. I think he'd like it too. We need to get him to dip his feet. Should I call him? Should I call him over here to get his response right now? I mean, why are we even Omar?
Okay, what are we talking about today? So I think we'll maybe start with a little bit of chalk talky breakdown stuff. The topic of the day is what do we kind of want to call it? Continues downfield continues off of break throws.
Maybe. I guess so. Sequence is what you put down.
Yeah,
Sequencing throws.
sequencing throws.
Stringing throws together. Overall good
Stringing
offense,
throws
I
together.
guess.
So, yeah, how do you make your offense flowing rather than choppy? What are your immediate thoughts?
I think one thing is, well, the reason we were talking about this a little was we were talking about that 45 back pressure thing and how getting an upline off of 45 back is so bad for the defense and good for the offense. I think one thing that's really important is making sure that you're moving the ball quickly into a space where that changes the point of attack, like completely, because that's what's going to allow you to string throws together. Like a soft, a soft 5-yard throw doesn't change the point of attack as like an inside, 20 yards down, not even, doesn't have to be 20, like an inside 15 yards downfield and like 10 yards horizontally as well, because that just completely changes. Like the defense was trying to prioritize maybe like the under break side space before the throw. And as soon as a throw like that goes up, all of a sudden the end zone is in play because the cutters are shallow, and it completely changes what the most threatening part of the field is. And that's how you sequence those together, because if the offensive players can recognize what the new dangerous space is and cut there before the defense can reposition and stop those throws, that's how you string throws together.
Yeah, a few things come to mind. Just listening to you, the first one is recognition from the other players, and the second one, which actually probably comes first, is like I think what you were describing is pretty dependent on highly skilled throwers, right? If you're talking about the type of break throw that is downfield and at least 10 yards to the break side. What I immediately think of is a Calvin Brown throw. Speaking of Calvin Brown, again, from Pres Day, when I was clipping stuff from Mama Bird, he throws this inside forehand on the left sideline, which maybe I'll try to clip in now. But when I was breaking it down for the college guys, I described it as a more advanced throw and maybe the type of window that not everybody can hit or should be looking for. So maybe I'll ask you a question, and that is there a way to maybe accumulate windows or throws or cuts that are a little bit less, like lower degree of difficulty, but if it's more of like the death by 1,000 cuts style? Is there anything that comes to mind? I mean, there is for me. So maybe I'm
what comes to mind? I think I need more on your question too.
Yeah, it's sort of like when we talk about it a lot. So that soft break window, I think you were about to say it earlier. So there's we don't actually ever call it a hard break, but the break that's truly breaking the mark versus the type of break throw that's honestly just straight up field to someone that has momentum towards the break side. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
So when I think about sequencing throws together, thinking about threatening how do I say that? Threatening dangerous spots, or soft spots in the defense that have high impact on your ability to break down the defense and attack the space that they're trying to take away.
Yeah.
Like what you described, and I'm saying this as if it was a negative, and I didn't mean that. Like the Ashland Joy, sort of best thrower of the 2010s.
Like rip.
When you think about him, you think about his shimmy, and he's just like breaking across the field.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. Like, how do you create the windows that are as threatening as, or as threatening or close to as threatening as the one that a really good thrower can make? How do you create more of the ones that are more accessible to all types of different players while
Right.
still being dangerous for the
Yeah. If you
defense
don't
and
have
hard
a
for the
net, if you
defense
don't
to
have a
react?
Kins, or
Yeah. I mean,
if you don't have a National
I
Joy,
think one thing that comes to mind is like the pace of at which you're playing. Like, even if you're not like a lot of those really nice throws too can be like a bailout, like maybe you're like later in the stall or like something has happened, the flow is broken, and it's because like the defense won't respect those spaces as much. Like the defense, let's say there's always one space that the defense is prioritizing, and then there's probably like a second space that's like your next area you want to take away. And there's probably like, if I were to think about it, I would probably break it up into like quadrants of the field, like, and you could probably break it up into more, but like quadrants is pretty good. Like, let's say, I wish we had a drawing board up here, but let's say like the disc is on a sideline and the defense is, are you gonna set one up?
yeah, I'm gonna make a
All right,
new.
you set
I
one
think
up.
I'll be able
This
to.
will be like a segment. It's like Chalk Talk with Kins and Mikey.
We I think I should be able to cut this in without sharing all of my sensitive information on my screen.
Yeah, let's not share all that, dude.
Bank account, etc. Okay.
So let's say the disc is in. Let's say it's in the middle of the field. Let's put it in the middle of the field. Draw a little field. Disc is in the middle.
Okay.
And the point we're getting at is, how do you create the windows that will force the defense to reposition and have to address a new threat? Yeah, so let's just pick any force. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we're force flick. So now just draw like a little line in front of that for like a vertical stack. So the point I'm getting at, which was, I think you need to play at like a faster pace, is that, and why I think it'll help to play at a faster pace, because like a lot of the times, let's say the disc has been here for 3 seconds, the defense, okay, and it really gets hairy here because there's so many ways you could look at it. But let's say traditionally, how Ultimate has been played, the mark is forcing flick, which means the defense is trying to take away the right side of the field, the open side, because they have hypothetical help from the mark to the left side. The defenders downfield take away the right side. And in a dream scenario, no one can get open.
This guy's tall.
Yeah,
look at
he's
him.
tall as fuck. And the reason I'm saying like a nut or someone who's really good can do this from less of a motion type scenario is like, if the defense and everyone is in an ideal position here, the defense knows they don't want to get beat to the right side. They're not going to get beat there to that open side. And a lot of the times the thrower can then, I muted myself. If the cutter is smart enough to realize, oh, nut has the disc, I can run to the break space, which maybe isn't accessible for some people, then someone can go downfield, run to that break side space, and even at a longer or a higher stall count, nut can hit them. But like, if the defense is able to settle in and know what they're supposed to be taking away, then it's going to be harder for people that don't have the standstill inside flick, break, throw, or the around backhand. They're not going to have, if they don't have that as accessible to them, then they need to be like, those throws need to be set up in motion so that they can be easy and so like a good one here that we would, a lot of teams try to set up is like, let's say the one in the stack cuts to the open side slightly and then cuts back to the break side, and maybe their cut, and I would say like what it would really look like is their cut would probably even be like under and slightly to the open side, and like then they would go to the break side. And you do this a lot in like V break, and this is a really nice one because obviously they're coming from So like a good defender, I need like if TK was here, he'd be like, well, the defender is going to slip the offensive player, and as they move to the open side, they are going to adjust their positioning relative to where the disc is, so that if TK was here, but
so just I'll talk about that for just a second, and that is like the way I drew this. If you're only listening to this, I apologize.
Bummer. Get on the YouTube.
The way I drew this second time after I accidentally cleared it is the downfield cutter. The stack is pushed towards the open side, and we think of the space right in front of the disc, this inside space, as very dangerous. So,
and that's kind of what you were referring to as the soft break space.
Yeah. Soft break space.
Right.
Although we have definitely used the word soft in different ways when we're talking about.
But for this conversation, what Mikey was talking about earlier is that space right in front of the disc where the thrower doesn't necessarily have to really break the mark in the same way that they would be if they were throwing the disc more to the left sideline, to the break sideline.
Right. Ideally, the mark is not ideally. The mark is usually not so flat that this is not accessible. And if they are, that's fine. Then that window just adjusts slightly.
And so those are the windows, like that's what we're talking about with how do you create more of those. And I just think the pace at which you're moving the disc will allow it, because if you just throw a couple quick resets or whatever, and the defense has to reposition downfield, like I think it'll be easier to create those types of windows than if you're playing slowly. And I mean, there's ways to do it, like we talked about, like just making that kind of cut from the one, and that's still a great thing to do. But the like better, the defenses are, the harder it will be to do from a stagnant position. And I mean, this is just really just like any offense. Like you just want to keep the disc moving so that those windows are open. They're bigger.
I love this topic. I'm sure it's a little bit difficult to follow as we just talk, and you're probably listening and not able to see everything visually. But I do love this topic.
It's a fun one.
There's so many moving pieces and things to consider. I think if we were to distill it down, though, a lot of successful teams throughout history in all sports have relied on the strengths of individuals. But I think to make a sustainable offense team-wide, the key is to play with pace and to look for windows that team-wide, like basically have a base skill level that you need everybody to expect to be at.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's interesting how both can work, because like if you have players that are so good, like in any sport, that they just create so many threats, it makes sense to have them, be like a centerpiece, I suppose. Like in basketball, you think about it a lot. Like if they're just creating so many threats by like having the ball or whatever, then it makes sense. Yeah. But then it also is tough. Like then if you get a good defender who can like nullify some of those threats, then you're kind of screwed.
That's the game, right? That's sports.
Yeah, it's fun.
Let's segue to this email from Logan. Logan Campbell, thanks for the message, and it's a good question. We'll answer it as best as we can. I'll just read the whole thing.
Okay.
I think
could just summarize it into what he was saying, where it's basically
okay. So the question is centered around force middle. He says he loves playing with different objectives with offense and defense and trying out new things. Current favorite defense of his is forcing sideline, and the way he describes it is a mark basically pivots around the thrower such that the exact middle of the field they are straight up, such that in the exact middle of the field they are straight up. But as the disc gets closer to a sideline, the mark pushes more to that sideline. He has some details about the differences between horizontal and vertical, but essentially it's trying to force people out of the middle and then trapping them on either sideline. Should we talk about that defense before we talk about... He asked about FM, but did not... I guess
Yeah, I mean, he asked
nothing in
about FM
particular,
and
but
just we asked for a description, I suppose, a description of force middle, and he also said that he read an article about it that said it wasn't good. I mean, the description of force middle is
yeah, he said there's a Skyd article from 2014 about how it is garbage and easy to beat.
I mean, I think one idea of forcing to the middle, I mean, there's a couple things. I think
obviously the meta is. I love the word meta. Sorry, go ahead.
I love meta because I'm a gamer. Like I think one of the nice parts about a force middle is the mark is generally more like active in front of the disc in terms of taking away things downfield, which I think is really nice. I think that's one thing. I also think, and it depends what like where you come from, I guess, but I mean, I also, I guess I should say, I don't think it's like one or the other is better. I think I hope
it's about being
no
coordinated defensively.
That, like we run FM. We think FM is the best defense. Yeah, definitely. I think both are usable. I mean, for description, I guess
let's also call out, especially knowing that TK. Thank you, TK, for listening. Is listening.
Yeah,
that what we do in Colorado is interpreted as force middle. We don't consider it force middle, but I understand why people look at it and call it force middle.
Right. Totally. And in it has similarities to a force middle. Like, I think part of it is just that it's almost disrespectful to call TK's defense, to summarize it so plainly as a force middle. I think that's what it does. It just doesn't do it like the justice or really, you know.
So, yeah, I agree. And what he's saying about, I'll read a little bit more of his email and the way he's describing the defense that he's having fun running. He said, against the horizontal stack, the handler defenders are encouraged to poach the lanes until they can set up the trap against a vert. The cutter defenders around the stack, I guess, are surround the stack enough to put a defender out in the lane on the trap side. I think everything that we were describing in the offensive piece or the sequencing throws segment or whatever we're calling that is true. Like, I think it's good that they're encouraging teams to swing to a sideline in this defense, and that is generally what we would want to do as well.
Yeah, the sideline is
teams to a sideline
better. I mean, it's just obviously,
and then create a ton of pressure from there,
or at least create. That's when you can create more pressure, you know, because they're on the sideline. Yeah. Options are fewer. I mean, I like the forcing to the sideline and setting up like something like a bubble in front of the disc, and then. Because it's like, instead of putting the mark downfield and trying to set up a bubble, like, you know, towards the middle of the field or whatever, and trying to not set up a bubble, but trying to stop things there, like the forcing to the sideline and then putting people downfield and trying to have the mark stop things to the middle is very uncomfortable for an offense. It begs the question of like where you should put people on offense.
I'm wondering.
You know?
I have not read this article. It's the Skyd article from 2014. Maybe I did years ago. In terms of why it's garbage, I'm not sure what their reasoning was.
Yeah, but also like I wonder what their definition of a force middle is. Like, if it's just as basic as like you're forcing towards the middle of the field with the mark, and there's no other like things that you're doing, or doesn't talk about what you're trying to do downfield when the mark is in that certain position, then it's like, yeah, okay.
Exactly. That's the key, right? I assume that the article is probably like, why would you continue to change the force? Like that's, then you're always giving up some free space to the downfield people. But that's why defense is it's not just about the freaking mark, right? Or like your initial positioning. You have to reposition based on where the disc is and who has
based
the disc.
On like so many things. That's what's fun about it, is like when you think about those kind of decisions being made on the fly and who's able to make them. Like there's so many, I like to think about it sometimes because there's so many variables as to like what could go into that decision. Like you started naming a couple, but there's like, if we really sat here for 10 minutes and wanted to list all the different variables that go into what makes a decision like that, we could definitely get to like 20 comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why it takes a lot of practice to install these things.
Yeah, because your brain has to be able to process that in a couple seconds, maybe less, and
why defenders like Spicer are so rare. TK just posted a clip in our film room channel for Summit of Spicer executing us like a pretty specific switch that we look for as a, how do you describe it? Not passive, but it's not an auto switch. I'm talking about the
maybe like
switch,
a reactive.
Reactive, maybe,
because he likes to say proactive and reactive.
Yeah,
but I don't know if he would like being reactive. But maybe in this situation, it's just necessary.
But these things are difficult, right? Like the reason why Spicer's so good is because he's athletic, he's big,
but he's smart,
and he's freaking smart. Like the fact that he could process that in real time in a high stakes game is just crazy to me. Like I can do it on film, but sure, in real time, I can't imagine that I would, come close to the level of Spicer.
It's pretty impressive, and that's why it's cool to watch.
Anything else on his sideline defense?
No. Well, I was going to talk about Sags for a little, just because I was, tasked with calling some defenses at Smokey, and so it got me thinking about like when to sag, how to sag, because we'll do a thing for like where like we call like how long the sag is in it, and I wondered the real like.
Can you define a sag just really quickly?
Yes, a sag being the handler defender going out into the lane in front of the thrower to obstruct throws going downfield rather than guarding the handler tight.
Yeah.
And so
trying to make him disrupt the ability to throw
downfield instead of guarding the handler. And so I was just thinking about like when you should call sags, how long they should be in them, because talk about another like being heads up, just making these decisions on the fly. Like a big problem I was seeing is that for a sag to be effective, like a good look, like we've talked about, is typically coming in within the first couple of seconds. Like a good look for most players who aren't incredible throwers, all that stuff is going to be coming within the first couple of seconds. So a lot of times what you would see, which wasn't good, which was the sag recognizes that the person got the disc. A couple seconds later, they go into the lane after the momentum of the thrower is really having them look in that space. And then the handler defender is open. The handler on offense is open. His handler defender is out in the lane, taking away looks that aren't really there anymore. And so you just get like a free pass that changes the point of attack. And
so what you're saying is the timing of the sag
late.
Was not, it was
and
late.
And that really made the timing of the offense nice, because when they would start to be like, oh, I think I'm going to look to my reset person now, that's when the sag was arriving in the lane. Instead of the sag arriving in the lane at instantly or close to immediately, so that it actually disrupts the look that would have been dangerous. And then, because I really like a sag that goes out, and your ideal is like someone that can understand the timing of the offense, and they know right now I want to be in the lane taking away this look, and I can start to creep back towards my person now because the person with the disc is going to start looking towards that handler, that reset soon. And that's like your ideal sag, but a lot of people would just do it late / not be active, which is just like the other thing. You just get, and you see it a lot in zone, you just get the people staring at the disc. And
so they're not taking anything away, and they're giving away a free reset.
They're giving away a free reset. Yeah. So like the timing, because like the beat of the offense is look right in front of you, probably going to look, I don't know, to the break space or to the reset after that. And so they're going the beat after they needed to be there, which meant that the offensive beat was taking them towards their assignment. And so it just makes their offense super flowy, which is not what we want. We want it to be choppy.
Choppy. Yeah. Totally, 100%. It's like you think about good offensive players too, and they're just watching for that. They're going to take advantage if you're giving them something free that they can leverage. If they can get you to overplay, that's like the word that I use.
Lurking.
Maybe more than any other offensively. Like I want to attack a threat so that I can be open or get the defense to overplay.
Mm-hmm. Totally, because the overreaction creates a reaction,
right? And that reminds me, I think we got a DM. I think it was from maybe Jerry. Jerry, he DMs us quite a bit.
Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. Rowan just messaged us too, by the way.
Little flex. Is that a little flex?
Flex. Yeah. We might talk to him about Excel. Rowan.
Rowan messaged me. Hello, me. Don't worry about it.
No big deal. He was. I won't read the message right now, but basically asking or describing decision trees, because I think we mentioned that we could almost just write a decision tree for like end zone resets or end zone motion, and so he was describing a similar situation that he went through, and it really is. It can be kind of a tree though, if you know what you're doing and have a baseline of skills. Like you don't need to be incredibly skilled with the disc. You do need to be very skilled in terms of being shifty. Like we talk about Nut a lot. He's past his prime. I don't feel bad about saying that. He is a good athlete. He's not a great athlete.
You have to add that part. I don't feel bad about it. In case you thought I felt bad.
I don't know why do I always do shit like that. But it's his shiftiness. It's his ability to change pace.
Yeah.
Right? You think about it. I keep going back to other sports too.
It's that and his,
like Jokic.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's that and his processing ability.
His processing speed of having watched and coached and played for so much.
I'd like to draw like a spectrum of it, but you have to have, and we've talked about this before, there's a baseline of for each level, there's a baseline of athleticism and a baseline of like understanding and IQ of the game. There's baselines for both of those, but what makes good players is having a higher combination of both. So like you can have someone who's off the charts athletic, but if their IQ, if they don't have any idea what's going on, they can't use it correctly. So it doesn't matter. And you can have someone whose IQ is off the charts, but even if they're not athletic, they can use the small ounce of athleticism they have to capitalize on when they recognize things quite faster than the defense. And so everyone lies somewhere on that spectrum, and that's like what makes them, good. And that is clearly significant, like very, like one of the highest IQ guys. And this is what we were talking about too. It's the yin and yang of it is like typically the high IQ guys are not as athletic. And part of that is probably because they've had to figure out more creative ways to get open because they're not athletic. Whereas the athletic guys typically are not as high IQ because they can compensate with their high athleticism. And then you get people like like Holy Grail is like a LeBron who is the most athletic and also is able to figure it out
smartest
IQ wise. And that's when you get like the best player because they have the whole package. But it's so rare. You never see that.
Right.
So rare.
And Nut is like above average athleticism, good length, insane skill, and then his brain is
that's his like
it's beyond any other one that I've ever been around.
That's his superpower. And he's definitely like at the baseline athletic point, because there's a point where even if you had Nut's IQ, there's a point to where you can't move around and you're not able to, be successful. But they obviously are above that point.
I'll measure you. How about because I feel like on social media and recently we've just been hammering on you.
What do you mean?
But you're fucking 6'4".
Well, that's what makes me good is the IQ plus the. I suppose it's like IQ. Athleticism and skill in some ways, like technical skills, like throwing and stuff.
Yeah, and you are an above average athlete. I think also your ability to move in small spaces at your size. Well,
that's why what's weird is like I think when I got injured and my athleticism got down, it forced me to be more. It forces me to be more thoughtful, which there's like arguments to like that's why maybe in some ways I am better when I'm injured because I'm more dangerous. Like I'm forced to use my head more, but then there's the ways that aren't as fun. Because like being athletic is way cooler. Like I love skying people. It's way more boring to be like the more like thoughtful, like I can't move around as fast version. But it's not necessarily worse, which is interesting.
You know, it is. I'll give you a little more props, and that is when I think about you and Joe White in compared side by side, I always say, well, Joe's more athletic. He just is. But you did legit sky his ass, and you made up ground.
And I was
in quarters.
hurt. I was hurt, which is just funny. But that's like another thing was like, I think skying is a big part of reading the disc. And I think I'm better at reading the disc than like, I don't know who's better at reading the disc than me because I've watched a disc fly a bajillion gazillion times and I've tried to high point it a bajillion gazillion times since I was like a tiny little kid. So I just like have a really good knack for knowing where the disc is going to go and high pointing it most of the time. So I get them. And that's the same thing with like the IQ and athleticism spectrum, because there's people that can jump higher than me and get their hand higher than me, but they can't combine that with getting the disc at that point. Whereas I can get the very most. I'm pretty confident in the fact that like whatever height I'm able to jump and put my hand up in the air, like that's the height I can catch the disc, which isn't like not everyone's able to do that just because not everyone can read the disc that well.
Okay. We're done giving you compliments. Yep. Thank you.
Goodbye.
You're good.
Goodbye.
So we're moving into obviously beginning of UFA season. We have mini camp coming up. We also just had a Bravo preseason meeting. Not that we need to go into a bunch of details on that, but you mentioned something earlier about spending time together, I think. And it was a topic in the Bravo preseason meeting about like, if you're listening to this, you probably know that culture matters to us a lot. And a hot topic was we need to hang out. We need to be social together. Well, not me, because it's helpful if the coach is there too, but it's important for the players and teammates to get to know each other and how that makes you play harder for each other, understand each other, and then also have that rapport that we were talking about. And we also talked a little bit about captains, obviously, and you were mentioning or maybe wondering about different roles that different teams have. Where should we take this? Should we talk about the role of captains?
Well, I thought we were going to talk about hanging out as a team. Or what was that? That was just a little interlude. It's just like we talked about it. That's it.
It was an interlude, and I didn't know where I was going with it. So
there's so many places to go with it. Well, just like how you should do that as a team, because like there's definitely like the dynamics of teams that are way different. There's this club teams that I'm sure only hang out at practice and are really bad at like setting up social events, and then there's also intergroup hanging out. Like I'm sure there's like anything from 2 people on the team hanging out to a full team event. And I think like all of it's great because all of them provide different dynamics. But I think it's super important. I think a team that doesn't hang out, like you're talking about, just obviously doesn't build that culture. But then it's like my immediate reaction is like, especially when you were like, people want us to hang out more. I'm like, all right, well then like there needs to be opportunities provided. Someone's got to be creating opportunities where people want to hang out. Like, it's not like no one wants that friend who's like, hang out with me, like, come over. Like, especially with me, like I want to do something that's fun and like engaging with other people who are also want to be doing that thing, which is why like we disc golf a bunch. It's just probably like my number one way of hanging out, at least recently, with people on the team is disc golf, or usually like ultimate related, or you got to find things that people on the team, like, just common things that people on the team would be excited about doing and get them doing them.
Joe brought up Joe Durst, Coach Joe, bringing back the camping trip, team event. There are fewer weekends available with UFA now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think finding that time to bond can be difficult, but
camping with a bunch of people scares me. I'd rather play like pickleball with everyone. Like that'd be so fun, would it not? It'd be so fun.
Actually Quinn despises camping, so if we have a camping trip, he's not going.
Which is like, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think like pickleball. I think like if you have the ability to just eat meals like after practice, that's a really good one. Like
those are like the soft break versions of hanging out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
Like, how can you accumulate a bunch of?
Well, because like it'd be so fun if we could like grill just like after, just get some food, play some games. That's fun. That's always fun. Food for me, borderline necessity.
You know what this makes me think of actually is what Maddie always talks about, how the weekday practices can be grueling for a lot of different reasons, but they also don't provide extra time to hang out afterwards.
No, and they're like smack when dinner is, and you're really sad and hungry.
Hangry.
But yeah, no, I mean, no, they don't, especially when they're later. Yeah, figuring out practices times is hard, definitely. But that's what I had on hanging out. What was the other thing?
Captains, roles.
Oh yeah. Well, I've just been thinking about it because my view on captaincy, if you will, has changed so much. Like I was telling you earlier, growing up, like I always wanted to be the captain of the team. Like I always knew I just like wanted to be a captain of Bird. Like it was important to me. Like that was something that like I really wanted. And then having done it, and then also just like having not been a captain on Bravo the past couple of years and enjoying that role and the difference that it, the different, I guess, not just perspectives and opportunities that arise from not being a captain. It's interesting. And then I'm like, what purposes do captains serve? Like what makes a good captain? And obviously that's different for different people, but
for different people, for different teams, for different seasons.
So contextual.
I used to always say this, all incoming college captains, or even before elections, I would say, don't do it for the status or accolades, because it's a thankless job.
Shit, sucks.
Yeah, it has to be because you love the team and you want to see the team succeed no matter what.
That should definitely be a prerequisite for being a captain, is like being one of the people that cares the most about the team and the team's success.
For us, logistics has been a huge one. Well, club teams are player run usually, so there's not a lot of
usually always
all the time. So officers, for some reason, Bravo has not really had officers lately, and I don't even think Bird has.
And I think that's been I know, and I think that's a distinction that we sometimes don't make. Like you said, like the captain, to me, a frisbee.
When Stan played for Bravo, he was the treasurer for like the entire time.
I think you should find people, and I mean it's tough if you have no one who wants to do it. Then it's got to be the captain. That makes sense to me. But if you can find people that want to do logistics, merch, whatever, travel person, that kind of stuff, like you should, because I don't think it necessarily should be the captains. And I don't think what makes a good frisbee captain for me, like at a tournament, makes someone who's good at like getting the hotels and the rental cars together.
I love this T-shirt. It says "Freaking the Sheets." And it has a Microsoft Excel logo. I want to get this for Justin, who's an outgoing captain. He's sadly taking this year off, but yeah, you think about when I think of captains, I think two things. They don't need to be your best players, and in my mind, the driving force behind it is for them should be cultural. It should be setting an example of how you want to be as a team member, as a teammate, how you like show the work ethic, show the commitment, and also make everybody want to be there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good last
The
point.
logistics piece, I don't think is. I'm sure every team's different, so maybe this is totally irrelevant to people that are listening. But I would love for. I think it makes sense structurally for teams to find other folks who want to contribute that way. Like when we talked about our leadership going into the club season and realizing that certain people are going to have different commitments outside of Frisbee this year, expanding families, etc. That instead of looking at it as a challenge, like look at this is like an opportunity to step up and also recognize and value the things that a lot of people in leadership bring to the team. Because I think, although I said you should never do things for the status and accolades, I think it's really important to be grateful for those people that are doing that stuff. That
Especially if they're doing a good job.
is well, I mean, they might be doing a bad job because they're like nobody gives a shit about me. So like,
So there's a little bit of a
that's
balance
what you should say
there.
Always say thank you to them,
But what if they're doing a bad job? Do you say thank you?
You say thank you, and how can I help you?
What if you don't want to help?
Then you're a bad teammate.
I want to hear from the listeners of different roles they have on their respective teams.
Yeah, how do you structure your teams?
Because I bet teams have like, you know what we should have? Like a music person, someone who makes playlists before games.
Showtime used to be that. Jackson Kluwer.
A snack person, if the parents aren't coming, who's bringing the snacks and the food and the drink?
Yeah, Bristol on cooler duty that one year.
Need that. Need a cooler dad. Ideally, they are a dad, I think. Parents
that's why he was probably so good
snacks. At it. Period. So if you got someone with kids, if you're in college, you better get parents going to your tourneys, I guess.
The Mama Bird parent game right now is pretty strong. At least it has been the last few times. Was it strong at Smoky?
Great snacks. I was super ecstatic. Like made my experience 10 times better. If there had been no snacks, I'm depressed.
Ooh, let's think of some of the best parents. We've had Michelle Horton.
Oh, I don't.
Jeff Landisman.
Jeff's a great one. All time Frisbee tournament dad. Because he just gets it. He as someone,
he was a player.
Exactly, he knows. They know what the players want. So that's a great one. Original
Buck is good for photos and general vibes.
Good for general vibes. I had who else? I don't know. There's a bunch. All the great parents out there.
Shout out to the parents, though.
Shout out to the parents. Yeah. You are the ones who allow us to do this in college. I guess I don't know.
This sport costs a lot of money to play.
It does.
Which we'll talk about more in a future episode. I think.
Yeah. What
else on roles, team structure?
No, I just want to hear what people's are.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah, give us some advice. Honestly, this is something where we're lacking. The parent game has not always been strong for our teams.
It's a really important game. That's necessary.
You know what I love about Masters and Grandmasters?
You're all parents.
Well, I'm not, but
most of them are.
We have endless tents and endless seating,
and endless beer for after.
An endless beer. And Ryan Siegel, who I think listens, always brings the bench. So it's like,
oh, that's funny.
Like stadium seating. That's great.
That's funny. I mean, that stuff's huge, kind of. I mean, it's all like, it's important. I mean, you never know what it's making or breaking. Maybe these are the overlooked things when we're analyzing games. Like, yeah. Sure, maybe one team's more talented, but do they have multiple tents? A full, like maybe Machine just doesn't have any snacks, and that's why for that year they sucked on. Like maybe that year where they had like the day 2 curse, maybe they just had no snacks and they weren't recovering, and they weren't eating and they weren't drinking. Maybe that's what we're overlooking here.
Maybe you might be right.
I probably am.
If Johnny doesn't get a Snickers bar, his peanut butter pretzels.
That would be such a funny Snickers commercial. Oh my god, we could like recreate it and make a Snickers commercial. That's so funny.
You turn into Johnny Bansfield.
No, like you use the footage from the game, and then after it happens, you like cut to another scene that's like in the same setting, but it's me turning around and being like, "Dude, eat a Snickers. You're not you when you're hungry."
I was looking up your efficiency, your Huck efficiency, and Quinn's Huck efficiency. Turns out in the UFA, for I don't know how long they've been tracking Hucks, but Hucks I think are defined as 40-yard passes or longer.
Yeah, that sounds right. Maybe 30 or 40?
Minimum.
Is it 40?
And minimum of 30 attempts. You and Quinn are the third and fourth highest completion percentage in the league.
All time or like active players, you were saying?
I mean, I just filtered on career.
Oh, okay.
So I don't if they're missing players that are not active.
This is definitely someone new, their whole stats keeping thing. There's no way they've been doing it for that long.
I mean, I would imagine Brody had probably thrown more than 30 Hucks when he played.
Maybe probably in one game.
Osgard dominates the stat entirely. I think he has the most Hucks and the highest completion percentage.
Put me on Yacht and Babbitt's team.
Yeah, that's true. He's throwing us some good targets.
And Jack, see what my Huck percentage is.
Jack's percentage is terrible. By the way, I don't have it offhand.
Interesting.
I wonder if I know like Ned always talks about the buzzer beaters at end of quarters that are bringing his percentage down.
Bring him down a little bit.
I do see Jack throwing a lot of those.
He does,
I don't know if that's he doesn't throw a ton, and his completion percentage is not good.
That honestly might, because he doesn't throw that many, so it could be a good amount. Could be from that.
It's interesting. His overall completion percentage is crazy high, but his
right, because he throws a bunch of throws. I don't think he throws that many Hucks, and I bet a large amount of them are end of quarter stuff. But then I mean, like, hey, throw him better, you know?
Yeah, throw him better, or don't throw him. I don't know. He's
because you got to
doing just fine, not throwing a ton of Hucks.
Throw it if it's the end of quarter.
But anyway, so this got me digging into the UFA API. It's still called the AUDL API. I am a software engineer by trade. I would be curious if anybody has dug into it at all. There's this cool Python library for anybody that is curious. I will keep this segment short because I'm sure not a ton of people are programmers.
I don't know, man. You might be surprised.
Somebody cool made what I just gotta give him a shout out. Because he made a nice Python library that I've been using. The author is Yuki Kong Ju. He has a GitHub handle, same thing. But anyway, I'm going to be digging into this a little bit more, and I'm going to try to download the entire history of AUDL stats and do some data analysis.
Send me that data.
What do you think about that, Kins? Is that interesting to you?
It is interesting. It's not the part of acquiring them is not interesting to me yet, but the part of reviewing the data is interesting. Maybe. I'm sure you'd get some things. I mean, it is hard to know, like with the stuff we're talking about, but I'm sure you could learn some valuable stuff. And it's like we talked about.
I think I'm going to link this repo actually.
Yeah,
Yuki Kong. Yuki Kong Ju.
Good Yuki.
That'll be in the description. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. But what other stats would you be interested to?
I don't know. We had talked about that on one of our really early episodes.
Yeah, with Chris.
I don't know what other stats I'd be interested in. I mean, I think a better question is like, what stats are you interested in? That would be like
useful
and easy to do. Like, I don't care if it's like, yeah, I mean, because like anything, every stat would be awesome, but like, which ones are you going to actually be able to?
I have a very limited subset of the stats pulled up on my screen here. I'm trying to unhide some columns.
You're a freak in the sheets. And there's nether.
I'm not a freak in the sheets. That's why I'm struggling
down there.
Nether cut, not the best completion percentage on Huck's. And, he's thrown a lot in the quarter, so.
We're just such a bailout for everyone. Well, I throw into quarter stuff, so.
Here's overall completion percentage. Wow. Well, these are people who have thrown over 40 Hucks. Or over 30 Hucks. But Quinn does lead the overall completion percentage.
Wow. At 96.
But his completions total is 725 versus, Jack Williams up there with 2,700.
Right. Like Quinn and I's numbers are way lower than everyone. Oh, that's just overall completion percentage?
This is overall completion
percentage. And we're both up there. That's so interesting.
Where's your name?
I'm 5.
Oh, yeah, you are up there. And by the way, this is for people. This is a subset of everybody. This is only people who've thrown 30 or more Hucks.
Wait, these are Hucks? No. Really?
No. These are not Hucks, but the list of people on my spreadsheet.
So it's like kind of.
Because there's 41 names on here, and those people have thrown 30 or more Hucks. I'm honestly surprised that you both have higher completion percentages than Pavel. I thought he was known for.
Pav just kind of sucks,
But he has 4,659 completions versus your 694.
Hey man, I can only play who's in front of me. It's amazing that we're not better than.
He's also played in 83 games.
I've played in 18. Yeah. That's a lot. Feels like a lot.
Okay. Anyway, that was some nerdy API statistics segment brought to you by
Yuki
Hiko Socks, I guess. A few people have been reaching out, some DMing for personal advice. If they're DMing me, does that mean I should not read their names?
Or maybe we should ask them first.
Okay. Questions about general offense and breaking the mark. I think actually Ethan, I feel okay saying him because he did email the show about suggestions about getting better as a player when you don't have any free weekends and how to play for high level club teams. One is, I think the first thing is like, unfortunately, weekends are when teams compete. So if you cannot have any free weekends, that's a gigantic hurdle. But on the whole note of adult resources that we've been talking about, I do want to shout out Alti Breakdowns. I think that's what they're called because the person, I don't know his name, has reached out a couple times or commented on a couple things and reposted some stuff. So from what I can tell, he has some at least good insight on film review. Ultimate. Yeah. Have you looked at his stuff at all?
No.
That's all right.
I have not yet.
It's pretty good.
There's a lot to look into there, but I'm not usually that motivated to look into that stuff. But I probably should be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't have to be.
Yeah.
And then I've learned a little bit more about Rowan and Jack's program, Excel Ultimate. And honestly, that seems like exactly what we were describing, except that it's online. But you can do individual one-on-one stuff with them, at least with Rowan, as far as I know. I've seen him actually talking to a kid about throwing. So resources are available, and I think we're gonna try to talk to Rowan a little bit more about Excel.
Yeah, let's get us on Excel.
Yeah, should we try it? Do you think we can? You think he'll cut us a deal?
I could excel for sure.
You could excel.
Yeah. Or do we start the competitor to excel?
What would we call it? D-cell?
Velocity.
Velocity.
Like we're not even accelerating because we're already at velocity.
How about we call it PowerPoint?
No. I think not. But I don't know. No, it is pretty interesting. The whole thing is, I don't know. The whole thing of like teaching in the sport will be coming faster and faster with more people doing it. So it is interesting to see, because obviously I have such strong opinions on the topics that when I see it a lot of the time, I'm like, I
You
think
disagree
something about it. Well, not necessarily. I just have strong opinions about it. So it's like a challenge to, I don't know, support it sometimes and also but then I'm like, wait, I'm also doing it. So I should definitely be supporting it. And I do support it. But
Are you a hater?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm actually like pretty good about not hating on it. But I internally really wonder like how beneficial that stuff is to people, and how much it should be charging. Like it would be really hard, like, especially because maybe like part of it is that it feels so natural to me that like to do it for other people. It's hard for me to.
You've been playing
It's
your
hard,
whole life,
right? So it's hard for me to get into the shoes of someone who would like actually want to learn these things. So it's just really difficult. Like I just don't really have a good, perspective on it. I think like I would really have to talk to more people, like a lot of people who.
I feel like you are. You go through mood swings of whether or not you are into it.
Yeah, because sometimes I'm like, it would be cool, and then and especially when it's like you're teaching kids, like I think that especially is.
You like. It seems like you like to interact with kids more
When it comes to teaching. Yeah.
When it comes to teaching, Quinn has clearly stated the opposite.
He hates the kids.
I don't know where I stand. I think I like them both, but I just see like so many opportunities. I see so many people who already love the sport so much that just don't have the resources. And then and going back to the money thing, like, not to toot my own horn here, but I get a decent amount of people just asking me, like emailing, texting, or DMs for specific drills or advice on certain things. And I know that TK does too. I know that TK actually helps teams that are not the teams that he coaches, and he gives them resources.
Interesting.
He has calls with them too. And I'm not saying that I should be charging for this, but
there's definitely an argument to be made that you could be, because I mean, that's why it feels so weird. I agree. Like it still feels weird to us to like charge money for it, but like there's a certain point to where like, I guess once it crosses the line of like, you'd want to be doing it more, like, sure, maybe if it's just like every once in a while, okay, it doesn't really feel like there's a great need to charge for it. But then like the more it's an inconvenience for you to be doing it, and the more you'd be going out of your way to help teams or like just have long conversations with teams or something like that, like you could definitely make the argument, but it still feels wrong because we're always like everything in Ultimate has to be free. Like
everything in Ultimate has to be free.
Everything
also, like,
has to be free.
if you are gonna DM me, by the way, please do. If I have the bandwidth, I will try to help. Like I wouldn't want to be just like, yeah, I will help you if you give me $50. Like right. I'm never going to be that way. I would love to maybe potentially offer a service, and then it's so that relationship is sort of established. Like if you want, like I'm offering this,
right?
If you want it,
it's up front.
But I see what you're saying. I think it's otherwise very strange.
Yeah.
To charge.
It feels weird.
But if you flip the script though, from the perspective of someone who does want to get better, and I think you have trouble empathizing because you grew up playing and all of those things, and we've talked about this already. But if I wanted to reach another level and I loved the sport as much as so many people do, why I would pay for it.
I know, but then I wonder like what you're paying for, like, and are the things really like is whatever
like actually going to help you?
Like is it actually helping, or is it just like
I think about like,
and are the things you're paying for you really couldn't like? I just don't know. Like, what kind of? I haven't looked at it, but like, what kind of drills am I paying for? Like, you as an ultimate player, but this is the part of me like where I can't.
This is why we need to talk to Rowan again.
Well, I need to talk to someone, because for me, I'm like, I couldn't think if I was a person, even if I just played on a sectionals team, like I couldn't. If I didn't think about it for like 10 minutes, I couldn't think about like a throwing drill I could go do at a field that would help me get better. And is the one provided by this service going to help me that much more? Like, I can't think of ways on my own and because the flip side of this is like, if you're really reflecting and really thoughtful, like you can probably think of
you probably can.
The capacity for you to think of something for yourself that's more attuned to you is definitely better than like whatever some program could give you. But I guess maybe then there's just a lot of people who don't want to think that much about it.
Well, you remember what you said about the new disc, that competition is a good thing for iteration. Maybe the resources aren't that great right now. Maybe they are. But if nobody's doing it, then how are the resources going to get better?
True. All right, that's it. We're doing it. Get ready,
yeah,
everyone,
we're doing it.
Because I am going to get ready for some fucking great drills, and in 10 months, you'll be throwing it just like me. Is that the sell?
Other thing is,
what's the sell? Like, here's some.
There's no sell. I think it's like if people want to do it, they do it.
What's like? You buy the product.
Here's how I would sell it if we were to do something like this, and I don't know
what value does it provide to the person.
The value that it provides is you are able to potentially make a leap as a player. Like you become
not buying. I'm potentially able to make a leap as a player. Sounds so not.
Yeah, if I sold it that way, sure. This is why I'm a terrible salesman. Next. But I think the key difference. I think what's lacking, in my opinion, is so let me take a step back. Okay, I've bought a million workout programs over the years, and I think a lot of them suck. A lot of them are BS. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are okay. Some of them are really good, but not a good fit for what I'm trying to do. But I've accumulated a bunch of knowledge, and now I kind of know what works for me as like when I'm just training, and I can tailor that. Like, do I want to train to be explosive for ultimate, or like there's also like different ways to be in shape.
Totally.
And I think the same is true for skills and sports. Like, what I think is missing is actual nuanced things like coordination, like coordinated movements. Like, I think that sometimes when videos that I've seen, they talk about nuance, like the way you snap your wrist, or like you shouldn't follow through on this or whatever. Like, I don't think that's focusing on the right thing. To me, like there are a million ways to throw a Frisbee. We've talked about that. But what I do think is important is someone reached out to me like how to break the mark. And if we're talking about one individual skill, I think it's like nobody really is talking about the difference between stepping to the side and having a release away from your body versus stepping forward past your mark.
Sure.
And being able to change your release to throw closer to your body. Like everybody says, like, don't have your elbow stapled to your side. Some people say that's a good way to learn. Some people say like you should just not do that right away. I don't think that way at all. I think what we should be telling people is how do these different angles of your body relative to the defense, relative to your mark, relative to the window you're trying to hit, like how do you adjust that? But that's also,
yeah, I know, but
that's
like,
what I'm interested in, and that's probably not useful for.
Well, I wonder because like if someone
the kids that you're interested in teaching,
well,
for
maybe,
instance.
but I'm just thinking like if people even, I don't even know it. Like if you hear people talking, or I guess you just got to give information at the end of the day. Like the goal is like you're saying, you got information. Like you just want to give information. Like you're not saying this is how to do something. It's like this is information that you can use on your own. Like I think that's kind of like one thing is like any like absolute or generalization that's too big is just not good. And then things are so contextual. It's like you should really just be focusing on giving as much information as you can about the game and letting people, if they want, take that information and then put it to use. So there's that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. No,
maybe we should.
We could start like a pod practice premium. And so it's like, we'll just release something. Maybe it's like a little subscription and then you just get access to like all these things. But then we would just have to like make a bunch. Cause I'm also thinking about like this stretching program that I'm doing right now called Pliability that Omar has on the Apple TV that his dad has. So I don't actually pay for it, but I just really like
because you're a Frisbee player. Frisbee players don't pay for it.
I really like, and if you live with the Semrins, you don't pay for athletic shit because their parents provide it for you. Shout out to Semrins for keeping me athletic. Yeah. I do really like the program. Like it's accessible. It's easy, you know, like you lay down, you sit down, you do it. They have nice music on in the background. Like it switches every day. They have one for each day. You do different, like it's easy to trust it and it just makes it easy for me. And so that part of it I do enjoy. So like maybe people would also like just having a workout program that they don't need to create. They can just focus on their job and we create them this like training program that they go out to the field and they do it. And yeah, it's not the best training program ever, or it's not that it's not the best training program ever. It's not the training program that you should be doing, but it's a training program that provides
it potentially will help you. That's this.
But it just provides information and eventually you just keep doing it and you can honestly like tailor your own. So
see, we're right back to my selling point.
Yeah. Hey, okay.
It might help
Subscribe to Prod Podcast Premium for $5 a month. It will potentially make you a better player and potentially make you reach the dreams that you want and potentially not. That is up to you.
It might not.
But that is up to you. We're just providing.
It's always up to you.
We're just providing the information. So don't blame us. If it does,
blame
if
yourself.
You suck, if you buy a program,
it's your own damn fault if you suck.
This program works 100% of the time if applied by a coherent human. If it's not working, then you are incoherent. That's the sell.
Always be closing.
And then not only then you know that you're incoherent and then you can focus on other things which you should be focusing on.
Read a book. Okay, we're off the wheels here.
Read a book and come back to find practice training. Yeah.
We'll wrap this up by I know people have definitely expressed interest in us providing some resources. As you can tell, we are doing our best to be organized here. So if you could help us and give us specific things that you're looking for.
Be specific. Be specific as possible.
Please be specific. The general how do I be better at offense question is, I don't know. There's a million different answers.
There need to be more details given. As many details as you can, give them. Where were you born? Start there. Every detail from that point to where you are in life, add as much of them as you can that are somewhat related to the subject.
Starting with where you were born.
Down.
Which I'm going to have to do with this episode, I think.
Oh, yeah. There will be some trimming for sure.
All right. Let's get out of here.
All right. Let's do